Night settled over Nova 12's corridors like a heavy blanket. The hum of machinery faded into distant echoes as Mara guided Joran and Lyra toward Kale's quarters. Their small footsteps clicked on the metal floor. Each child's grip tightened. On Mara's hands, fear and hope danced in their eyes. At the door, Mara paused. She pressed a trembling hand against the cold metal panel and entered the override code. With a soft hiss, the door slid open. Inside, the room was unexpectedly sparse. A single cot stood against one wall, its blanket folded neatly. A small desk held 2 data pads glowing with idle light. A narrow viewport looked out over the empty, mining shafts. The air felt dry and sterile. Kale stood in the corner, arms folded across his chest, visor reflecting the pale lights. His silhouette was rigid, like a monument, yet his stance held no threat, only watchfulness. Mara swallowed hard. She half expected him to turn them away. Joran and Lyra huddled close, their faces pale in the visor's glow. Mara knelt to their level. "Stay right here," she whispered, voice calm but firm. The children nodded, eyes wide. She stood and faced Kale. Her heart pounded in her ears. "I offered myself," she said, voice soft but steady. "You let me in." She paused, unsure how to speak to a soldier who did not share her language of emotion. Kale took a slow step forward. The visor's light shifted, as though he studied her every movement. He reached out with a gloved hand and touched the corner of the crate. Then he pressed a small button on his wrist console. The crate's lid slid open, revealing neatly stacked ration bars and protein vials. Soft white light spilled out, illuminating Mara's anxious face. Shaky breath, fear subsiding into relief, he gestured toward the supplies. Then, in a voice low and measured, he spoke a single word. "Take." His accent was faint, mechanical, yet it carried weight and unspoken permission. Mara's eyes filled with tears. She stepped forward and lifted the bars, hands shaking. Kale did not look away. He met her gaze through the visor. In that moment, Mara sensed a flicker of something human behind the mask. Concern, even compassion. She turned back to her children. Joran reached out for a bar, and Lyra clutched a vial. To her chest. Their faces lit up with wonder. Mara wrapped them in her arms. "Thank you," she whispered, tears wet against Lyra's hair. Joran buried his face into Mara's side, relief quivering in his small frame. Kale watched in silence, arms still. Crossed, the weight of his quiet acceptance settled around them like a blanket. As Mara distributed the food, she spoke in soft tones so Kale could understand. "My children, they are hungry. Did not want to offer myself, but I would do anything to keep them alive." Kale nodded once, almost imperceptibly. Then he tapped. His wrist console again. Faint hologram flickered above his palm, showing data lines and numbers. He pointed at one line that read ration allocation, 0 gives 30. Then he tapped again. The number changed to 5, gives 35. Mara's brow furrowed in confusion. Kale stood and moved to the desk, lifted one datapad and scrolled through. Menus. After a moment, he placed it on the desk and selected a file. The holoscreen showed distribution logs. He tapped a new line, and the logs updated. Extra ration credits transferred to Mora's account. 5 days' worth of food credits, enough to feed her children and others in need. Mara's voice caught. "Why?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Kale removed his helmet, revealing a face softer than rumors had ever implied. His dark eyes looked tired. A single scar traced his jawline. He spoke in careful tones, as though choosing each word. "Order does not feed children," he said. "Humanity does." His words echoed in the quiet room. Mara stared in awe. She reached out, her hand hovering near his. She remembered fear, how she had trembled to offer herself. Now she felt something else. Gratitude, respect, and a fragile hope for something beyond survival. Outside, a distant siren wailed, calling soldiers for night patrol. Mara scooped up. Joran and Lyra. She brushed a lock of hair behind Kale's Iran, instinct born of relief and raw emotion. "You saved us," she whispered. Kale nodded, replacing his helmet. The visor clicked shut, hiding his expression once more. Yet Mara knew the truth. He had risked everything to help a stranger. In the glow of the ration crate, a new story began, a story where compassion broke cold orders and humanity shone brighter than any star. Mara pushed open the heavy airlock door and stepped onto the gray metal walkways of Nova 12's mining colony. The sky outside was streaked with ash. Twin suns rose dimly through the haze. She wrapped her thin jacket around herself and looked down the corridor where flickering lights cast long shadows. Every morning felt colder than the last. Her youngest Lyra clutched at her mother's hand, eyes wide and tired. Beside them, 7-year-old Joran stared at the empty ration hatch, his small shoulders hunched. There had been nothing to eat since yesterday's meager paste ran out. Each day, the corporation cut more from the food credits, kept back for operational costs, they said. But Mara knew the truth. They saw colonists only as profit units. She thought of her children's gaunt cheeks and hollow eyes, Joran's quiet cough, Lyra's tears when she begged for one more spoonful. The ache in Mara's chest felt like steel. Love should not hurt so much. With a trembling breath, she tucked a wisp of hair behind her ear. Today, she decided, would be the day she did something no mother should ever consider. Far ahead, the corridor ended in heavy blast doors. Behind them lived Kale, the Death Worlder soldier assigned to guard this sector. Soldiers like him never spoke, engineered by the corporation to obey orders without question. He towered over ordinary people, clad in impenetrable armor. Rumors said he had no family, no mercy. Children hid at his approach, yet he held the food tokens that could save or starve 100 lives. In the stillness before dawn, Mara's heart thundered. She did not know what she would ask. She knelt on the cold floor, pulling her children close. "Listen," she whispered. "I will make them see me as nothing more than a broken woman. They will give us enough food for a week. Then we run." Joran's lip trembled. "Mama, it's safe?" His voice was small, fragile as a moth. Lyra pressed her face to Mara's side. "I'm scared." A tear slid down Mara's cheek. She stroked each child's hair. "I know, love. But hunger can kill faster than fear. I promise I will bring you food." Mara stood and took a steadying breath. She reached into her pocket and clutched a thin paper-forged work pass from another sector. It would grant her 1 night in the soldiers' quarters. Her throat tightened as she walked toward the blast doors. Each step echoed in the empty corridor. Machines hummed. Somewhere behind the walls, Kale slept in pristine stillness. He would awaken to her plea, to sacrifice her dignity so her children could live. At the massive doors, she pressed the forged pass against the scanner. A green light blinked, and the doors rumbled open. The air inside was warmer, scented with recycled humidity and machine oil. Metal racks lined the walls. In the center, a single matte black crate held his ration supplies. Mara's heart pounded. Her reflection danced in the polished surface of the crate. She felt hollow, as if her own spirit was slipping away. A sudden click made her spin. Kale stood in the doorway, visor down, arms crossed. He leaned against the frame like a statue. His silence felt heavy. Behind him, the pale glow of his quarters revealed a narrow cot, a simple desk, and 2 data pads. No personal keepsakes. No signs of kindness. Mara swallowed her fear. She dipped her head. She began, voice unsteady. Her children squeaked in fright. She extended a shaking hand toward the crate. "I offer myself for 1 night. Feed my children." Time slowed. Kale waited, body still as stone. The seconds stretched into an eternity. Joran whimpered. Lyra peeked from behind Mara's skirt. The weight of her words pressed on her chest. In that moment, Mara tasted shame and hope, bitter and sweet together. She felt tears spill down her cheeks. The twins watched their mother, not understanding her sacrifice but sensing its gravity. Behind the visor, Kale made no move. Mara wondered if she had failed already, if she would leave empty-handed, her heart broken and her children still hungry. Then, a soft hum of servos. The crate's lid slid open. Protein bars and nutrient syringes glowed under the lights. Kale stepped aside, silent but not hostile. Mara's breath caught. She knelt and scooped the bars into her arms. Her children rushed forward, voices full of wonder. Mara held them close, tears of relief and disbelief mixing on her cheeks. Dared not hope for more, but in that moment, under the cold flicker of neon lights, a spark of warmth kindled in her chest. As they turned to leave, Mara looked back at Kale. He remained motionless, but she sensed something different in his stance, something like understanding. She held her children's hands and stepped through the doors into the pale dawn, carrying food and a fragile glimmer of hope. The world outside seemed darker still, but Mara no longer felt alone. Tonight she had learned that even in the coldest places humanity could shine. Night had fallen like a velvet curtain over the colony. In her small home beside the mining shafts, Mara's children drifted into sleep with full bellies for the first time in weeks. Joran lay curled beneath a thin blanket, clutching an empty ration bar wrapper like a treasure. Lyra's soft breathing rose and fell as she hugged her stuffed Toya-battered doll with one missing eye. Mara sat by their cot, watching their chests rise. Relief warmed her chest, but a new worry crept. How long could this mercy last? Quiet crept into the corridors as the colony's lights dimmed to conserve power. Mara stole away from her children and returned to Kale's quarters. She carried a small tray of boiled water and simple bread, her only offering of thanks. Blast doors slid open with a hiss. Inside, Kale stood by his crate, hands resting on his hips. His visor reflected the amber glow of the tray. Mara's heart fluttered. She placed the tray on the desk. "I brought this for you," she said softly. Kale removed his helmet and set it on the table, careful not to scuff the polished surface. His dark eyes lingered on the bowl of water. He had not expected kindness in return. He knelt and dipped a gloved finger into the water's surface, watching. Ripples distort the ceiling lights. "Water tastes like life here," he said, voice low. Mara nodded. "And you gave life to my children." Tears gathered in her eyes. "I cannot repay you, but I want you to know you are not alone." He straightened and looked out the viewport. Below, mining machines rumbled like distant thunder. The colony's rigidity pressed on him. Its orders were clear: enforce discipline, collect credits, report infractions. And here he stood, sharing a quiet moment with a stranger. Memories came unbidden, his own mother's gentle hands, a field of green grass under a blue sky. He had forgotten what softness felt like. In this metal room, he felt something stir. Mara cleared her throat. "My children, they will need more help soon. The corporation will notice missing credits." She met his eyes. "They have rules. They will punish you." Kale's jaw clenched. He touched the scar on his cheek. "No," he said. "I have seen punishments worse than hunger." His words trembled. For the first time, he allowed emotion to color his tone. "I cannot watch children starve." Mara reached out and gently placed her hand on his armored forearm. The metal was cool under her palm. "You have mercy," she whispered. "Mercy is what makes us human." Kale looked down at her hand, then closed his eyes. He held the moment. Spark of warmth in an endless night. When he spoke again, his voice was steadier. "Then we will need more mercy." He stepped to the crate and pressed a sequence on the console. The lid opened to reveal fresh rations and med packs. Mara's breath caught. "You risk everything," she said. "Cannot ask more." Kale shook his head. "Ask me anything." He replied, "I am no longer just a soldier. I am a man who chose compassion." Mara looked at the supplies and back to Kale. "Help me share this," she said. "Let us feed the children in my sector and yours. Let us bind our people with hope." A gentle smile curved on her lips. Kale nodded, visor catching the lamp's light like distant starlight. Together, under the quiet hum of hibernating machines, they planned. Mara described where hungry families lived, near the old water towers behind the oxygen plant. Kale noted patrol routes and blind spots. They worked side by side, human and soldier united by kindness. Outside, the colony slumbered, unaware that hope was taking root in the darkness. In that small room, mercy blossomed like a fragile flower against all odds, and humanity's true power glowed, brighter than any weapon. Morning light crept through the grimy viewport of Kale's quarters, painting the metal walls in pale gold. Mara gathered the last ration bars and med packs into a worn satchel. Joran and Lyra slept soundly at their home, trusting their mothers. Promise of safety. Today, she would bring food not just for them, but for all who suffered. She stole a final glance at Kale still in his armor, somehow less imposing in the soft dawn glow. Together they stepped into the corridor. Mara led the way, her satchel weighed not by supplies, but by newfound purpose. Kale followed silently, his boots echoing against the corridor floor. Each step forward felt like a promise. They passed empty dormitories and silent workstations. In one doorway, a father cradled his sick child. Mara offered a ration bar and Kale handed over a med pack. The man's eyes filled with disbelief, then gratitude. Word of their shortcut spread quickly through the colony. By midday, a small crowd, tired miners, single parents, elderly workers, gathered near the old water towers. Mara called out. In clear, gentle tones, "Take what you need. No shame in hunger. We share what we have." Kale stood beside her, hands open. His silence spoke louder than any speech. Here was a soldier who chose mercy over orders. The crowd reached forward, relief and hope lighting their faces, as they distributed food. A younger soldier approached, rifle slung across his back. He frowned at the scene. Comrades breaking protocol, rations unaccounted for. His hand hovered near the trigger. Mara held her breath. Kale stepped between them and the crowd. He laid a hand on the soldier's shoulder. "They are people," he said softly. "People like you and me." The soldier's eyes narrowed, but he lowered his rifle. Compassion had spoken. Later, Mara and Kale walked to the hull hatch overlooking the mining shafts. Below, massive drills chewed through rock, sending dust spirals into the air. Workers in heat suits labored without rest. Mara bit her lip. "This place. It crushes people," she said. Kale nodded, visor reflecting the orange glow of the drills. "They see value only in credits and output. They forget humanity costs. Far more." His voice trembled with unspoken loss. Mara reached out and took his hand. Beneath the armor, she felt his pulse, steady, slow, but alive. "Then we remind them," she whispered. "We remind them that kindness and hope are stronger than fear." Kale squeezed her hand. Quiet vow passed between them. They would not relent. Together, they would sow seeds of change. On the way back, they passed the colony's central unit. Ada tapped into the speaker system and cleared her throat. "Attention. All personnel," she called, voice firm and clear. "We will be returning to ration distribution daily at dawn. No one will go hungry while we serve." A murmur rose, then applause. Even in metal halls, human voices found warmth. That night, Mara tucked Joran and Lyra into bed. Their smiles were brighter than any sunrise. Kale stood at the doorway, helmet tucked under his arm. Lyra reached out for him. He knelt and rested a gentle hand on her head. Joran offered him a half-eaten ration bar. Kale accepted it with a soft smile. As Mara watched her children laugh with the soldier, she knew their actions had sparked something powerful. Humanity had awakened here, among ashes and steel, in the quiet darkness. Mara and Kale watched the colony lights flicker below. Each light was a person, someone who once suffered alone, now part of a shared hope. The future still loomed uncertain, and the corporation's reach remained strong. Yet in their hearts, Mara and Kale carried a new conviction, even the smallest act of kindness could grow into a force no power could extinguish. Under the twin suns of Nova 12, hope had taken root. A week passed since Mara and Kale first shared rations. In that time, they had delivered food to over 50 families. Word spread until nearly every corner of the colony knew their faces. Small groups of colonists began to volunteer, guiding. Mara and Kale, two hidden alleys and unused storage rooms where more supplies were stashed. Each day, the pair awoke before dawn, hearts full of purpose, and returned long after the sun set, exhausted but proud. This morning, Mara tightened the straps of her satchel and paused at the threshold of Kale's quarters. The soldier awaited, her visor raised, revealing eyes bright with determination. They exchanged a quiet nod. No words were needed. Their partnership had grown deeper than any language. Together, they stepped into the corridor, ready to share hope once again. They first stopped at the old hydroponics bay, where engineer Selin worked. Her face was haggard, but her eyes shone when she saw Mara and Kale approach. "You came early," she said, voice soft. "I have fresh sprouts and extra water for you." Selin handed over a small crate bursting with green shoots. "For the mind and body," she added with a weak smile. Kale tapped his wrist console, adding the crate to their growing list of shared supplies. Mara's heart warmed at the sight of new life amid metal walls. As they left the bay, a group of children peeked from behind a maintenance door. Joran and Lyra ran toward them, holding out ration bars. Laughter rang through the corridor, bright and innocent. One little girl, eyes wide, popped a bar into her mouth and grinned. "Thank you," she whispered, crumbs on her lips. In that moment, Mara felt the weight of her sacrifices wash away. She was no longer the desperate mother who begged at closed doors. She was a beacon of hope for an entire community. By midday, they reached the settlement's central square where colonists gathered to trade scraps and repair tools. Mara climbed onto a makeshift platform, a stack of empty crates, and called for attention. Kale stood beside her, arms at ease. "Friends," Mara began, voice firm yet gentle, "we face hard times. But together, we are strong. Today we share more than food. We share our will to stand for one another." She spread her arms wide. Murmurs of agreement rose from the crowd. Kale tapped his console and opened the ration logs on the holoscreen above them. Lines of names glowed, each representing another person saved. An older miner named Rolf stepped forward. His rough hands shook as he held out a half-used medpack. "I want to help," he said. "These machines are my life's work. I can fix the broken ones, free up power for food storage." His blue eyes glistened with pride. Kale placed a hand on Rolf's shoulder. "Thank you," he said. "Your work feeds more than the colony, it feeds hope." The crowd erupted in applause. In that moment, the barrier between soldier and civilian dissolved, as the sun dipped. Mara gathered supplies from Rolf's repaired power units and Selin's hydroponics. Kale accessed hidden storage rooms, bypassing lockdown protocols. They loaded crates onto a hovering cart, black gloves and bare hands working side by side. A patrol drone hummed overhead, its sensors sweeping the square. Mara held her breath, but Kale raised his voice calmly. "All clear. Continue." The drone swiveled away without incident. Their careful planning had paid off. Back in Kale's quarters, Mara sorted the day's haul. Nutrient bars, fresh sprouts, med packs, clean. Water. She looked at the supplies, and then at Kale. "We're doing more than feeding bodies," she said softly. "We're feeding souls." Kale removed his helmet and ran a hand through his short hair. "Showing the corporation that people matter more than profits," he replied. His tone held pride in something else, something like relief, that he was no longer just a weapon. Mara thought of her children. Joran's curious questions, Lyra's warm laughter. They slept peacefully now, dreams sweetened by full stomachs. Mara placed a gentle hand on Kale's arm. "Thank you for reminding me why I fight," she said, "and for reminding this colony what it means to be human." Kale met her gaze without the visor's mask. On his eyes, she saw a promise. As long as they stood together, mercy and humanity would prevail. That night, as the twin suns sank below the dusty horizon, the colony glowed with a new light, one born not of neon lamps, but of shared compassion. Families gathered around small fires, children played without fear, and neighbors spoke softly of better days. In the midst of it all, Mara and Kale watched from Kale's narrow viewport, hands clasped. They had begun to weave a tapestry of hope across the cold metal walls of Nova 12, and they knew their work had only just begun. A low rumble shook the corridors of Nova 12 as corporate enforcers arrived at dawn. Mara stood at the edge of the central square, heart pounding, as two armored officers stepped from the hover transport. Their crisp uniforms and gleaming badges marked them as outsiders who cared nothing for human lives, only data and credits. The crowd hushed, fear threading through their ranks. Mara gripped Cale's hand. His visor reflected the officer's stern faces. "They've noticed the extra ration credits," she whispered. "They'll try to shut us down." Cale nodded, voice soft but steady. "Then we stand," he replied. "Together." Mara inhaled, rallying courage from his calm strength. The senior officer raised a datapad. "By order of Urax Corporation," he announced, voice clipped, "all unauthorized ration transfers are illegal. Ration distribution must cease immediately." His words dripped with cold authority. A ripple of panic spread. Families who had learned to hope felt their hearts tighten again. Mara stepped forward, voice trembling but clear. "We will not let hunger divide us," she declared. "These rations saved lives. We share what we have because we are human." Her words hung in the air. Cale joined her side, armor gleaming under the harsh lights. "I am a Urax soldier," he said, "and I refuse to enforce orders that kill children." Murmurs rose into cheers. Colonists pushed forward, forming a human wall around Mara and Cale. Engineer Sellen lifted a crate of sprouts high. Rolf turned off the central power. "Feed to one of the transport pads," delaying the enforcer's departure. Even small acts like handing a water vial to a medic spoke of solidarity that no corporate drill could break. The lead officer glared. "You're obstructing corporate operations," he said, tone sharp. "Step aside, or we will use force." He gestured to two enforcers, weapons humming with energy. But the colonists held firm. A burly miner named Tomas stepped forward and laid his hand on the officer's boot. "Do it," he said, voice steady. "Kill me for feeding my family." Time slowed. The officer's finger hovered over the trigger. Then, in a quiet command that echoed like thunder, Cale spoke. "This is your choice too." He removed his helmet, standing unarmed before the uniformed men. "Join us, or you stand against your own humanity." His voice was calm, unwavering. The officer's jaw clenched. He looked around at the people he was sworn to subjugate and saw fear, yes, but also something stronger, unity. Slowly, he lowered his grip on the datapad. "You leave me no choice," he said, tone hollow. "I will report this, but I cannot fire." The weapons powered down with a hiss. The enforcer stepped back, defeated not by violence but by compassion. Cheer rose, trembling at first, then more confidently. Mara felt tears sting her eyes as Rolf clapped Cale on the shoulder. Sellen handed Mara a small bouquet of hydroponic flowers. Their bright petals stood out against the gray metal. "For hope," Sellen said. Mara accepted them with gratitude, pressing them to her chest as if they were the most precious treasure. Over the next hours, colonists gathered to help repair damaged habitats and share stories of survival. Children ran free, laughing through the corridors. Even the senior officer lingered, watching families embrace and neighbors trade tools and food. In that moment, he realized that his datapad, his orders, and his authority were nothing compared to the power of a united people. As dusk fell, Mara and Cale walked to the edge of the settlement. Below them, the twin suns dipped behind the ash-filled sky. The colony's lights glowed brighter than ever, each one a testament to perseverance. Mara squeezed Cale's hand. "Today we did more than defend rations," she said. "We showed that people can choose kindness over fear." Cale's visor lifted, revealing eyes soft with emotion. "Humanity wins when we stand together," he replied. "No corporation can buy that." He reached out and touched Mara's cheek gently. Under the fading light, they shared a quiet smile, two souls bound by hope and compassion. Behind them, the colony hummed with renewed purpose. Walls once cold and indifferent now echoed with laughter and conversation. Where machines had once measured value in credits, people now measured it in shared meals, repaired homes, and helped hands. In every corridor and dormitory, hearts beat. In unison, stronger than any medal or mandate, as the first star appeared in the smoky sky, Mara looked to the future. Challenges would come: fuel shortages, supply drops, even harsher orders. But she and Kale had ignited a rising tide of unity that no force could extinguish. For on Nova 12, the people had discovered their true strength, each other. And that, she knew, would carry them through any darkness. Morning broke over Nova 12 in a promise of change. The ash-filled sky glowed pale orange as Mara and Kale stood at the edge of the settlement's highest balcony. Below them, colonists bustled through the central square carrying crates of sprouts, med packs, and ration bars. Laughter and conversation filled the air for the first time in months. No longer were people silent and cautious, they walked with purpose and pride. Mara inhaled the crisp, recycled air, and felt hope pulse through her veins. She thought of her children Joran, now chattering excitedly with neighborhood friends, and Lyra, dancing through the corridors, her missing doll arm replaced with a freshly crafted wooden one. Their smiles had become the colony's beacon. Mara turned to Kale. His visor was raised, revealing eyes that shone brighter than any star. "Look at them," she said softly. "They believe in tomorrow." Kale nodded, his armor neatly polished, but no longer a symbol of fear. It had become a reminder of his choice to stand with humanity. He glanced at the ration logs displayed on the hollow screen below. Surplus credits flowed freely. Feeding families, fueling dreams. "This colony thrives on compassion," he said. "We gave more than food. We gave each other trust." Mara pressed her hand to his. In that touch lay the journey they shared from desperate bargain to newfound unity. Below, Engineer Selin unveiled a small hydroponic greenhouse. She had repurposed old alloy panels and discarded tubing, transforming them into domes of green. Young recruits helped plant seeds, their laughter sparking like sunlight in the gloom. Mara remembered how barren these halls once were, machines clanking, spirits broken, how vines curled around support beams, and fresh water misted the air. Life, fragile and hopeful, flourished amid metal. Across the square, Rolf and Tomas led a team to repair the oxygen recycler. Their hands moved with confident skill. "We never thought we'd work for each other instead of Urox," Rolf said, wiping sweat from his brow. Tomas chuckled. "We build a future here," he replied. "A future of our own making." Mara watched them, chest swelling with pride. The colony no longer served profit margins, it served people. Kale guided Mara to the terminal now. Repurposed for daily broadcasts of community news, Mara tapped a console and spoke into the microphone. "Today we celebrate our first community festival," she announced, voice steady. Cheers rippled through the crowd. Music in Old Earth. Melody began to play, its gentle notes weaving through the corridors. Children danced. Adults smiled. Even hospital corridors echoed with soft footfalls of nurses caring for patients whose wounds were healing faster under the warmth of shared hope. As sun climbed higher, Mara and Kale joined the festival. Mara tasted a fresh sprout from Selin's greenhouse. Its crisp sweetness sparkled on her tongue. Children offered Kale-painted stones, each one etched with a simple thank you. He accepted them shyly, placing the stones in a small pouch at his belt. Each stone was a promise that his choice would never be forgotten. Amid the celebration, Mara spotted a figure approaching a corporate inspector in black uniform, datapad in hand. Hush fell. Memories of the enforcers returned like cold shadows. But this inspector's eyes softened as he surveyed the lively scene, families laughing, stalls of fresh produce, the repaired genset humming in the background. He lowered his datapad. Mara held her breath. He cleared his throat. "I'm here to audit," he said formally. Then he paused, glancing at children weaving flowers into Kale's armor. "But I find instead a thriving community." His voice lost its edge. He tapped the datapad once, then closed it with a click. "Report as you will," he said. "Order or not, you have built something worth preserving." He turned and walked away, leaving a stunned silence that bloomed into cheers. Mara caught Kale's eye. He smiled, and she felt tears prick at her lids. You changed everything, she whispered. Kale's gaze drifted to the children. He shook his head gently. We all did. As dusk fell, Mara and Kale stood once more on the balcony. The colony. Lights shimmered like stars brought close. Families gathered around flickering lanterns. In the distance, hydroponic domes glowed soft green. The twin suns faded, and the first true night in ages wrapped Nova 12 in quiet peace. Mara clasped Kale's hand. We survived the darkness, she said, voice full of wonder. Now we will shine. Kale nodded. A new dawn together. And so, under the smoky heavens of Nova 12, humanity's true strength glowed. Compassion, unity, and the unbreakable bond between a mother who dared to hope and a soldier who chose mercy over orders. A new chapter had begun, one written not in credits or commands, but in shared lives and boundless hope.